In the spring of 1941, a message left Tokyo that should have changed the course of World War II. It was not a warning shouted in panic. It was calm, specific, and terrifyingly precise. The message stated that Nazi Germany was preparing to invade the Soviet Union. Not diplomatically pressure it, not intimidate it, but destroy it. The message reached Moscow. It was read, stamped, filed, and then it was ignored. The man who sent it was Richard Sorge, a man Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, called the most formidable spy in history. He saved the Soviet Union from total collapse, and in return, the Soviet Union let him die. This is the story of the spy who knew too much. To understand why a German national would betray his country to serve the Soviet Union, you have to look at the trenches of World War I. In 1914, Richard Sorge was a patriotic German soldier. By 1918, he was broken. He was severely wounded by shrapnel, left with a permanent limp and a deep hatred for the governments that had fed his generation into the meat grinder. While recovering in the hospital, he read Marx. He decided that nationalism was a disease and communism was the cure. He didn't become a spy for money. He did it for ideology, and that made him dangerous. A mercenary can be bought. A true believer cannot be stopped. By 1930, he was recruited by Soviet intelligence, the GRU, and given his mission. He wasn't sent to London or Paris. He was sent to the most xenophobic, tightly controlled capital on Earth, Tokyo. His mission was to infiltrate the Axis alliance at its highest level. Sorge's strategy was counterintuitive. Most spies try to be invisible. Sorge decided to be unforgettable. He posed as a German journalist writing for the prestigious Frankfurter Zeitung. He arrived in Japan in 1933 carrying Nazi credentials. He joined the Nazi Party. He drank heavily with German diplomats at the Imperial Hotel and drove a Zundap motorcycle recklessly through the streets of Tokyo. There is a famous story that defines his tradecraft. One night, drunk, Sorge crashed his motorcycle into a wall near the American embassy. He was bleeding, with broken teeth and a concussion. But in his pocket, he had classified documents he had just stolen from the German ambassador. When the police arrived, Sorge refused medical attention. He refused to lose consciousness. He held on to the documents until a contact arrived to take them. Only then did he allow himself to pass out. This recklessness made him credible. No one suspected the loud-mouthed drunk at the bar was the Soviet Union's most valuable asset. But Sorge was just the front man. Behind him was a cell known as the Ramsay network. It was a masterpiece of human engineering that began long before Tokyo, in the back alleys of Shanghai. It was there that Sorge met Ozaki Hotsumi. Ozaki was a Japanese journalist who shared Sorge's secret communist ideology. When Sorge moved to Tokyo, Ozaki followed. But Ozaki wasn't just a reporter anymore. He had become an advisor to the Japanese Prime Minister. Ozaki sat in the very rooms where the empire's strategy was decided. While Sorge handled the Germans, Ozaki handled the Japanese. The network also included Branko Vukelic, a Yugoslav photographer who microfilmed the stolen documents, and Yotoku Miyagi, an artist who acted as the courier. Their tradecraft was impeccable. They met in movie theaters, passing microfilm rolls during the newsreels. They used unsuspecting couriers to move data between safe houses. They operated under the nose of the Toko, the thought police, for 8 years. Through this web, Sorge had a 360-degree view of the Axis powers. He knew what Hitler wanted from Japan, and he knew what Japan was refusing to give him. It was the perfect intelligence machine. Information is useless if you can't move it, and moving data out of 1940s Tokyo was a technical nightmare. Japan was an island fortress. For transmission, Sorge relied on Max Clausen. Clausen was a radio genius who built his transmitters from scratch using household junk. If the police raided his home, they wouldn't find a spy radio. They would find a pile of scrap. Because they couldn't transmit for long without being triangulated, Clausen compressed the messages using a numeric code that stripped out all grammar, just raw data. They transmitted in short bursts, moving the radio constantly, playing a deadly game of cat and mouse with the Japanese direction-finding trucks prowling the streets. In May 1941, the network intercepted the ultimate secret. Germany was massing troops on the Soviet border. The invasion was real. Sorge transmitted the full picture. 170 divisions, the strategic objectives, and the date, June 20th. He was wrong by only 48 hours. For intelligence work, a 2-day margin of error is a miracle. It should have triggered a full mobilization. Instead, it triggered silence. Joseph Stalin received the report. He read it, and he dismissed it. He called Sorge a little shit who was running a brothel and a factory in Tokyo. He believed Hitler wouldn't attack without finishing Britain first. Stalin was betting his country's survival on his own intuition over his spies' hard data. On June 22, 1941, Sorge was proven right. The German artillery opened fire. The Soviet Air Force was destroyed on the ground. Sorge watched from Tokyo as his homeland burned. But he had one card left to play. By September, the Germans were at the gates of Moscow. The Soviet Union was on the brink of annihilation. They had fresh reserves, but they were stuck in Siberia, guarding against a Japanese attack from the rear. Moscow needed to know, would Japan attack? Sorge consulted Ozaki. Ozaki consulted the cabinet. The answer was no. Japan had decided to strike south, towards the Americans at Pearl Harbor. Sorge transmitted this finding in mid-September. Japan will not attack the Soviet Union. This time, Stalin listened. Within days, the Siberian divisions were loaded onto trains and rushed west. They arrived just in time for the Battle of Moscow. These were the troops that stopped the Wehrmacht in the snow. Richard Sorge had saved the capital, but his luck had finally run out. The Japanese secret police, the Tokko, had been closing in. They didn't catch Sorge first, and they didn't catch him with technology. They caught him with a mistake. The police had been surveilling Japanese communists. They picked up a dressmaker who was a member of the party. Under interrogation, she mentioned a strange artist named Miyagi. The police picked up Miyagi. He cracked under torture. One name led to another. On October 18, 1941, the police raided Sorge's house in the Azabu district. They found incriminating documents he had failed to burn. The network was dismantled in a single night. Sorge was imprisoned in Sugamo prison. He wasn't executed immediately. He sat in a concrete cell for 3 years, writing his memoirs, waiting for the rescue that he was sure would come. The Japanese offered to trade Sorge 3 times. 3 times, Moscow replied. Their response was cold, bureaucratic, and lethal. The name Richard Sorge is unknown to us. Stalin abandoned him to hide his own shame. Acknowledging Sorge meant acknowledging that Stalin had ignored the warning about the war. So Sorge had to be erased. On November 7, 1944, the anniversary of the Russian Revolution, Richard Sorge was hanged. His last words were in Japanese, thanking the prison staff for their kindness. For decades, he lay in a pauper's grave in Tokyo. It was his Japanese lover, Hanako Ishii, who eventually located his body. She recognized him by his gold tooth and his boots. In 1964, the truth finally came out. He was awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union. But the medal came too late. The spy who saved Moscow died alone, betrayed by the empire he saved.